Well, hey there, HVAC pros and enthusiasts. Are you ready to take your skills to the next level? The HVACR Learning Network has just launched an exciting new e-learning course, High Performance Heat Pumps. And guess what? We're giving you free access to the first 2 chapters. Whether you're in the field, training for that next step, or simply want to sharpen your expertise, this course is packed with everything you need to understand and master high-performance heat pump systems, especially inverter-driven cold climate heat pumps. And the best part? You can access it anytime, anywhere, right from your favorite mobile device. It's HVACR learning made flexible and convenient for you. So what are you waiting for? Click the link. Dive into the HVACR Learning Network and start your free trial today. Your journey to HVACR mastery begins here. Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us once again on Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC show. You know, we've been spending a lot of time diving into new technologies, regulations, refrigerants, looking at how the industry is changing, especially as we move into high efficiency heat pumps and inverter technology. We're looking at entire new generations of equipment. And so we spent a lot of time on training. We've done a lot of firsthand equipment education. Today's going to be a little less technical, but a whole lot more conversational about things that are happening in our industry and ways that we can all assist at making things a little bit more efficient. So today we're spending some time. How are you doing today, Scott?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here.
Scott Pierson, Vice President. Encompass is a different perspective in our industry that I really I look forward to kind of having this conversation to talk about ways that technology and innovation and just new perspectives are going to help our industry move forward as we start looking at our shortage of labor. You know, the shortage of labor has been a very significant conversational point in this last few months, last year. And so we're having to look at ways of solving that. And so this really stemmed from a podcast that we did a couple of weeks ago. It just came out on the network. Hey, Tim, thanks for joining us today. Yeah, everybody let us know where you're joining from. Scott's out in Las Vegas today. I'm here just outside of Indianapolis. Scott, thank you for joining us today. Doing good. I know you got some warm weather over in Ohio as well. I know here in Indiana, we're like 86 today, which is a little unseasonably warm. So Scott, let's kind of step back and let's first talk about the labor shortage, and then let's get into some solutions for that and talk about challenges that the industry is probably going to be facing as we start moving forward.
Yeah, it's Clifton. It's something we've been talking about for 5-6 years now. It's been on the horizon where we know that we've got a lot of the older generation retiring. They've earned it, which is awesome. But they take with them the tribal knowledge that some of the 20-year-olds don't have these days. And, that's one element of it. But you got to remember, this is also an industry that's been somewhat challenged since its existence, right? If you rewind back 30, 40 years, the general design of this market has been somewhat fractured. You got a lot of singularity between OEM and distributor relationships that pose challenges to technicians and contractors from a business standpoint. And then you compound that with things like we're going through right now, which, the third refrigerant change in 20 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
The unpredictability of that and kind of the impact it has on the market in general is tough. But when you sprinkle in a technician labor shortage on top of that, it's interesting, right? I think the statistic I've heard recently a lot is in the next 4 years, we're going to see about 40% of the industry technicians retire. That's a big wave.
It's crazy to think about.
And demand's not slowing down. So what do we do?
Right. How do we become more efficient? And so as educators and as technicians and contractors, I think it's very important for us to particularly as educators, to be aware of how the industry is changing. Remember, this show is here simply to provide resources, to provide information from an educational perspective to those that are at the front line of bringing new technicians and new talent into the industry. And as the industry is changing, it's not just the equipment, it's not the tools, it's not just the refrigerant, it's the way that we do business and the way that we allocate our time. And as we start looking at ways to do that, I think it's important to be able to understand, like the whole parts side of things. I was in distribution for quite a few years. I did technical training in distribution. I seen some of the weaknesses in that, especially as we started moving into very high end equipment like inverter technology. There was a time where a distributor could stock a whole bunch of universal capacitors and transformers and motors, and you could supply a nice variety of parts to your contractor to fix a majority of the equipment they're going to encounter in the field. And those days are almost over as we move away from single
Yeah,
and two stage equipment.
for sure.
So let's kind of talk about how that has changed over time and how parts distribution has evolved in this last decade.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in this business for 20 years. I know you've been in it probably slightly more than that. So the concept that I'm seeing regularly throughout those 2 decades is, the advancement of data, right?
Mhm.
We've always had a relatively unorganized industry when it comes to information and data, and really that information that you need on the front line for a technician in the field to be successful. Um, you know, Traditionally it was, hey, you diagnose a part dead in the unit. Now I've got to call around town just to figure out what a part number is, right? Because if I don't have a part number, I can't start that transaction with a consumer. And if I can't start that transaction, well, there's no money in the job. There's no, there's a lot of time wasted, right? So when I start to peel back the onion on where can we find real solutions, a lot of it has to do with parts and getting to the market fast. And to your point, those parts are changing, but a lot of it has to do with access to information up front.
Hmm. Okay.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. As we're moving into a piece of equipment, like where do I begin? Is this OEM part available? If it's not, what is the replacements for that? And that is definitely a challenge because when we were in permanent split capacitor motors, wasn't a big deal, right? PSC motors, PSC motor, grab the horsepower, change capacitors, change fan speed taps, and you can make a variety of applications work. A lot of that's even going away, and so working with a piece of equipment, a technician is going to be required to dive much deeper into the information to be able to find the things that they need.
Yeah. I mean, if you look upstream at the OEMs, there's a lot of good engineers that, because of necessity, have designed some pretty sophisticated equipment.
Right.
With that comes a need for competition and proprietary components. And now the nuances, to your point, are far more wide and deep than they used to be, right? It's not about just matching up specs to a motor. Now that motor has to be built by that manufacturer to work, right?
Sure.
So it's a much different equation than it used to be.
Yeah, and Tim, that's why I wanted to put that up front. This is a slightly different conversation than we typically have. Typically we're diving into a technical training aspect, but it is such an important part of our industry that we want to meet with solutions. We're not here to meet with controversy. We're here to meet with solutions. And it has become a little bit of concern as technicians. So, Jackson, we agree. It's becoming difficult for a parts house. And so let's kind of talk about why that is becoming. And so from the distribution side, when I was in distribution, I worked for a very large wholesale chain. And for us, our job was really to supply our dealers with the products that they were needing to be successful. Typically, that's in equipment, right? And if it was warranty parts, we would make sure that we would have those available as well. Parts wise, it's difficult to stock parts for equipment. So typically, when we would be introducing a new line of products, we would stock X amount of parts to be able to make sure that we had parts for warranty, and we would have to anticipate. So we would have to forecast, right? How many parts would we potentially need to have in stock at any time for all of these different pieces of equipment. Well, everyone knows that we just went through a major equipment transition. Some manufacturers, particularly those that were using R32, have completely redesigned their products. So equipment from 2024 is going to be very different than 2025. And even some of our R454B manufacturers, as they're moving into A2L mitigation strategies, they couldn't even make all the changes at once. Some of them were implementing A2L controls as a accessory. Some of them are updating their control boards along the way. So we're going to see pieces of equipment with a lot of revisions and adaptations in a short period of time, and distribution just can't stock all of those parts. It's just not feasible. And we want to make sure that you understand some of these solutions that can help move that along. And that's really what we're here for today.
Yeah, let's quantify that for a minute. So we do business with hundreds of manufacturers directly from a parts perspective.
Right.
And they'll be quick to tell you that the equipment business and the parts business, it's two very different games.
Yes.
But to quantify really the challenge that you're posing here, let's just take one manufacturer. I won't say who, but in their arsenal of SKUs for just parts, 350,000 parts in their current line of equipment.
Really?
And
Wow.
all of those are breakable, replaceable parts. So to your earlier point that it's hard for distributors to really plan inventory around that or even keep up with the data and information to ID that without deep research. It's a real problem. It is something that we've got to think about. How do we apply technologies and some of the new things coming out to create tools and solutions that maybe accelerate the supply chain and give technicians back some of the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that idea. So let's dive into it. So let's talk about Encompass. Encompass is not a new business. Encompass has been around for a very long time. Tell us a little bit about Encompass and where you're going to market with a solution.
Yeah, love to. Thank you for setting me up to pitch here. So Encompass Supply Chain Solutions, also affectionately known as Encompass.com. Best soundbite for us is for the past 70 years, we've managed supply chain and been the data geeks for a lot of manufacturers in the States, outside the States, making sure that product can get to market fast. I would say great soundbite that I always use, anything that has a power source in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Encompass likely has a repair part or manages supply chain for those repair parts coming into the market. So think about things like garage door openers, appliances, and not just little appliances, but refrigerators, washers, dryers, things like that. Your Samsung TV. If you ever lost your remote control, Encompass is probably the one shipping you the replacement from Samsung.
Really?
So recently we've added to kind of cap it all off. We've added HVAC and plumbing to the mix, but it's the same playbook. We're going to work with the manufacturers to curate the data, to create tools and resources for the service technicians and distributors out there downstream, and make sure that parts get to market faster, accurately, and really just in a more predictable fashion. We all loved years and years ago when the big A, Amazon, gave us a new reality where we could expect things to show up in 48 hours. Think about that concept on HVAC as a whole, but not just limited singularity in brands, all the brands in one place. So that's really the thesis that we're trying to stab at is how do you create a single source solution for distributors or technicians to rely on and create predictability to take care of the end user. So
Yeah, Tim, this must be hitting very close to home for you because this is the whole reason we had this conversation. Like, really, this was a podcast. We're like, this is such an important topic. Let's put it on the show and see how it does. So I'm really glad that you're giving input on this because it really is becoming something that we have to be better at as an industry. As we start getting all of these new parts and the consolidation of companies, it's really nice to be able to have that data to be able to help manage this. And I really love the fact that you we're not talking about a replacement for distributors, right? We're not talking about like the Amazon for all parts. We're talking about a relationship in the industry, working with distributors, working with manufacturers to be able to make sure that those parts are available when we need for them to be available, and working in many applications very much in conjunction with the local distributor to make sure to have that entire transaction flow based on data.
Yeah, every great technician has their favorite counter guy. And then they have all the other counter guys in town.
Right.
And unfortunately, they don't always get to work with their favorite counter guy. So this really is talking about how do we enable that favorite counter guy to take care of his favorite customers and technicians as fast as possible. You know, there's a lot that goes into the sales channel from the OEM moving through a big ecosystem of people and stakeholders to get to that technician installing a repair part.
Hmm.
But the reality is, repair always eventually leads to replace, right?
True.
Good repairs tend to lock in loyalty and trust with homeowners and end users to eventually generate value for that contracting business and potentially a replacement, right? So everybody in the channel has a responsibility, or at least a value, to make it easier to repair parts or repair machines. So
We brought the topic up before the show about a shift that we're starting to see in new product sales, and whether it be the refrigerant transition, whether it be the technology transition, a combination of both, or an effect of the economy. We are moving into a little bit more of a service oriented structure for our contractors, right? When we start selling less product, we start doing more service and repair. And so we are starting to lean into that change. We're starting to see that right now. And that's why we wanted to bring this up, because it was a timely conversation. So let's walk through kind of some examples. Show us a little bit about what we're talking about. We're setting the stage for this, but how does this actually work?
yeah, I'll jump into that, but I'm gonna pull on something you just mentioned.
Sure.
The idea that we went into this summer understanding that it would be kind of a a case point for us, or a really truth point to see where it would land, repair versus replace. One of the stats that came out earlier this week was for the third straight quarter, um, OEMs are shipping 27% less machines into the market than before. So that trailing data point that's telling us, okay, this is moving into a repair market. We've got to be able to do more repairs to keep healthy contracting businesses alive. Yeah, that's a real thing right now, because it does have a huge impact on our economy, right? New construction and HVAC being a big category in that, um, as well as the replacement market for equipment out in the field. You know, all that matters, and it ties to not only our general economics, but energy costs and the things that are related to that. So I think it's a very important topic to dissect. I'm excited to show your audience here what we're building, and excited to get some feedback too. So
Yeah.
cool if I jump into that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we encourage anyone in the audience, as we're moving through, you have some questions, hop in the chat, let us know. We'd be happy to, Scott would be happy to show you different aspects of it. We're going to dive into the flow, because, I'm a technology nerd. I love good technology. And so I went through some of this, but I'm going to sit back and enjoy myself. So
Yeah,
yeah,
keep me updated in the chat, because I'm going to move on to a different screen.
you bet.
All right, I'll frame it up like this as I pull up my share. Encompass is ultimately should be considered as, we're the data geeks and the guys that love to ship small boxes. So when it comes to parts fulfillment and helping you ID a part to get there, that's really the corner we want to stand in, kind of over here by ourselves. We don't want to interrupt anybody else, and that's really where we want to be. So.
Contributing to the cause.
Yeah, it's the unsexy part of the calls, but it's the part that we find the most interesting.
Right.
So I'll start from this perspective. One of our big value props is having access to all the repair parts from a genuine OEM standpoint. We don't sell generic parts. We don't promote that. One of our promises to not only OEMs, but also technicians in the field is that you're going to get the right part because you got the OEM part. It's not necessarily going to be a cross-reference attempt where it might be only 90 percent right. This is 100% right all the time because it's the true genuine OEM part that came from the manufacturer. So one of the things I want to showcase first is pretty much every major brand, we've done that. We've got direct access to all the OEMs to take their archives of data and curate it in a way that becomes a useful tool for distributors that need to expand outside their general portfolio, and then potentially technicians as they're IDing parts that they want to interact with the distributor upstream. So first and foremost, all the brands in one place. Big deal. Very much big deal to us.
Yeah. I actually want to make a comment on that. So if we go back to that screen,
Yeah.
So I was a distributor for a couple of these brands. But one of the genuine problems within the industry, and that not everyone really understands, is that if I am a distributor of my products and one of my valued customers comes to me, because most contractors, especially in the residential, they work on any brand. A piece of equipment's a piece of equipment.
Yeah, you're 5 or 6 brands a day. Right?
Absolutely. And so if one of my valued customers comes to me and they're getting parts for our products, things that we stock, but they're also getting parts for other jobs, and they go, hey, is there any chance that you can get me these parts for this other job that I'm working on? I go, no, actually, I'm sorry. I can't even allocate those parts. And their common response is, well, neither can I, because since I don't sell that brand, I don't have access to those OEM parts. And that's a big concern. And Scott, I'm glad you said that, because that was a genuine problem as not just a contractor, but as a distributor. And so you've seen it yourself now as an educator, after many years of the industry at the supply house. That is a challenge that we all know. And so, yeah, really, really interesting to see it. Sorry, I get very excited about solutions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a choke point in the market. It's the byproduct of a probably misorganized supply chain. It created a lot of fragmentation through the industry, which to me is just a recessive tax on that end user. If you've got to call the carrier guy just to do carrier work, there's a little bit of lack of flexibility of choosing your own supplier, choose your own service provider. So this enables that. Enables good quality techs to use good quality parts and get genuine OEM parts every single time. So yeah, fun stuff. All right, so that's value prop number 1. Value prop number 2, I'm going to go to a different screen real quick, but I'm going to come back because the best things for last. Value prop number 2, we're in 12 different distribution centers coast to coast in North America. But they're not just any 12 distribution centers. They're all strategically located in shipping lanes for FedEx and UPS to optimize their ground delivery system and get product to over 80% of the country in 24 hours or less, ground delivery. 95% of the country in 48 hours or less. And we're talking about like Montana, Wyoming.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure people live up there still, but not a whole lot of HVAC need. So when you're really thinking about heating and cooling and speeding up the supply chain for HVAC, having the ability to say, hey, most affordable option to ship it and predictable, because we have very late cutoff times for same day shipping. On the East Coast is up to 9 p.m. Anywhere else in the country, it's up to 6 p.m. using some of our automated facilities. So it's a big deal. We use a lot of automation, a lot of advanced robotics to make sure that we can pick it consistently and fast and in a predictable fashion that gets product to market faster than anything else. Yes, you could go pick it up from your local supplier if they have it today. However, we can get it to them in 48 hours if they don't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, toggling back to the best thing. And oh, by the way, I don't know if anybody noticed, but I mentioned this earlier, everything that has a power source in the home, over 16 different verticals. And then when you double click into it, it really turns into like 27 different verticals for the home. So anybody that's looking for things to satisfy homeowners, um, from a service perspective or home services
Yeah.
perspective,
Yeah.
we're a full source. So
Well, even the tool repair, many of us are as technicians do a lot of our own repairs. So even in
yeah,
that power tool sector, I mean, there's some amazing resources in there.
yeah, over 350 brands in total, and a lot of those we are, because there's several offshore manufacturers for appliance and HVAC. We actually manage their supply chain and consumer experience for North America. So we're
Hmm.
kind of like a really best kept secret for the world of appliances and home service components.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're unlocking that secret today. So here we go.
Yeah. It's crazy.
All right. So here's the best thing. Hopefully, I still have this cheat built in. If not, I've got a model number memorized, but we'll start the story. So Johnny, the technician, pulled up to Mrs. Jones' house. He did the meet and greet and the cool sales stuff. He went outside to start working on the machine, diagnoses the problem, and now what? Traditionally, the next three pieces of information he needs to keep going are part number, price, and availability. Um, and the old way of doing it is, all right, I got to get in the van, start making phone calls, call the office, call distributors. I got to start this research process to get my data points. The new way of doing it now is simply go to encompass.com, type in a model number to the machine he's working on, and hit search. In 3 seconds or less, he's going to pull back. And this is an example that I use specifically because this is the ICP brands. So you
Hmm.
got 7 or 8 different brands within the same model number. So let's just say he's working on a Heil. He clicks on the machine. Mind you, we don't sell equipment. This is just here for aesthetics. But what we do sell is parts. But now he's got instantly in 3 seconds or less the full bill of material or parts list for that machine. So he can quickly say, all right, I know I need this blower wheel. And now I have the genuine OEM part for it. I'm going to click on it. And ooh, I've got a nice spin image so I can see that it's actually what I want to put back in this machine. I'll give you a hint though. We don't sell it for that price. I'm not logged in. This is a inflated price to stave off
Sure.
your consumers that might hit the site. Also
Absolutely.
builds in some space for distributors and contractors to make their money.
Yeah. I see
Um,
that.
but this little blower wheel, now he knows we've got it. He knows it's in stock. And because of our promise to get things to market quickly, he can say to Mrs. Jones, hey, it's Monday. I know I'm going to have this part back in hand in a few days. Let's go ahead and get you back on the schedule for Wednesday. And guess what? Now that ambiguity that used to be there in procurement that plagued our ability to dispatch and schedule the follow-up call, all of that vanishes. That gray space goes away. Mrs. Jones now knows when she's taken off again. There's no back and forth phone call anymore. There's no ambiguity on, oh my goodness, how many nights left do I have to sleep in sweaty sheets because it's, hot outside. So all
Right.
those things become predictable now. Now I know exactly what the expectations are supposed to be. And we've always talked about it's always about managing expectations. Now that goodwill that comes from that trust that's built, it's there. So
Yeah, I think about it even like as a distributor, right? One of the even as a distributor, if I was trying to allocate parts in the past, there are companies that you can get parts through. Very rarely did they have photos that were up to date. So even as a distributor, now you have that opportunity to stand there with your technician. Oh, is this the part? Because even if I'm a sales counter guy, right? Sales counter training is another thing that we've talked about in the past. I may know my brands well, but my contractor that is standing in front of me that is getting parts for the brand that I know, and they're also looking for parts for another brand that I don't know, they might be telling me, hey, I need this. And I'm going, I don't know. That doesn't look exactly like what I'm thinking. Is this it?
yeah,
And now you've got that really high quality photo that you can show. So all aspects of the industry has that ability to improve, recognition of the part that they're looking for.
yeah. One of the biggest stakeholders in the industry is going to be that distributor, right? They
Mhm.
care for our contractors locally like none other.
Yeah.
and we appreciate that in a big way. And I've run distribution businesses for most of my 20-year career in HVAC, and it is challenging to keep up to date with training on the counter.
Hmm.
One, because
But
there's a lack of time, right? We
yeah.
don't staff the counter for peak season. So when it gets hot outside, it gets hectic. It's stressful, and the time that we can take out of that research process for a counter guy to ID parts outside of their general mix,
Hmm.
that's unlocked now. The time that Johnny technician can go on and say, "Oh, I know the part. I'm going to send it to my favorite counter guy so that they can get that coming, and I can get everything moving." That's unlocked now. So that information exchange, especially for some of the newer techs or newer counter guys coming into the industry, because I think we are attracting more now by making it easier,
Yeah.
making it more of an attractive role. Those are coming in with now tools that they can be far more efficient than they were even when it was, the best mechanic sitting on the counter, right? Even he struggled sometimes to get it right 100% of the time.
You bet. Well, yeah, because I mean, think about that. Like, as a distributor, and I'm doing training for my counter staff, I'm literally setting them up on the site, going, "Okay, here's your list of parts. Go get comfortable with these different parts," and then the visual starts popping out, right?
Yeah.
Because we can look at the actual parts breakdown. We can see that because our parts breakdowns, from the manuals are typically just in plain old black ink, right? There's no dimension to them, and now that counter staff is actually looking through the parts, going, "Oh, that's a draft inducer wheel. Oh, that's a rollout switch. I've seen them out there on the shelf. That's where that thing goes. That's what that does." So
Well,
it adds a lot of visual education.
let's take that concept and make it a little bit more.
Okay.
So listen, 120 HSV5. I think this is the model number that I memorized this morning. Yes, it
Okay.
is. All right. So an LG mini split, and it's a couple revisions from the manufacturer. So let's click on the latest one. So you got your head here, and look what we happen to have here.
Exactly what I was talking about. Okay.
Right. So
Right.
now I've got exploded drawings for that machine, and I can go through and walk on the counter with a technician or navigate through that with access to this information.
Oh, wow.
So a different way to navigate to the parts ID than I showed you before,
Right.
but another unlock tool for efficiency and deep research on the counter or with a technician. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
doing it.
That's unheard of. Trying to find parts manuals for products that I don't sell is always been a challenge in distribution. And so now you're unlocking that for all your brands.
Yeah, free the information. That's my concept. It's always been locked up behind decent firewalls at the distributor, and that's cool. That was healthy for competition. It made clean paths in the industry from a supply chain standpoint. But I think if we're really going to get serious about where we sit today with the shortage, being right in front of us, and some of the chaos from a lot of the variables at play, let's release the information to speed up the channel. Everybody wins if we get it done faster.
Yeah. Jose kind of had a comment on that. He jumped in earlier. I saved this comment, but when he came in about 15 minutes ago, and it really does, it comes down to that information, right? Just like Scott just said, that data driven information is what will improve all of our processes. And so when we take a company that's been doing that for 70 years in this realm, and now introduces it into a market that's in dire need of some assistance in managing that chain, you got a really good solution, I think.
Yeah, I like Tim's comment where he says if a distributor carries 5 different brands of parts, they'll go bankrupt. That's true.
True.
It has to come with volume. We stock hundreds of brands of parts. The idea though is that it's going to complement that distributor who can't, right?
Mhm.
So we do it in mass so that they don't have to. Because I think honestly, if we focus on parts for the world, and we don't want to be the only ones. We want more people to come up with similar solutions so that this thing actually speeds up and it's not just driven by us. But if we do parts and distributors locally can do equipment and kind of supplies to install equipment, that's a good ecosystem put together, and something that everybody can be the expert in the corner that they sit in. So
Yeah, no, yeah, I like that. It is absolutely a solution.
for sure,
Got a cricket going crazy in here.
I hear
Crazy
it.
thing. I know. I'll have to put that. I'll have to go cricket hunting here after a while. Anyone have any questions at the moment? I know it's a lot. I'm glad that we did have all these comments because I wasn't sure because we do so much technical training. I wasn't sure if this was a topic that would be a good one to bring in, but I'm glad to see that it is a conversation that is needed to be had and provides a lot for educators as we're looking at assisting our students with preparing for the future, helping them be more efficient at their own work is really what it comes down to, and getting them involved with the changes in technology and refrigerants, but as well as the software and those data driven analytical solutions is really going to be important for all of us to understand. Going into a time where technicians are going to be in very high demand, and skilled technicians are going to be very valuable.
Yeah, and I think, Clifton, let's do right for the ones that want to do quality work. Let's give them
Mhm.
quality parts. So,
I agree. Another thing that you and I have been discussing is training. Tell me a little bit about what you're leaning into for training as well.
yeah, you're releasing the secret too early, but we are launching a different level of our Encompass University
Mm-hmm.
here in the fall. We want to be a single source solution for parts and information, and with that comes a responsibility to also be a single source for all the different types of education a contractor or a counter, you know, distributor might need. So putting together that in a fashion that you can come to us for ESCO learning, you can come to us for SkillCat learning, you can come to us for EGIA, from a business perspective, and find everything in the toolbox to access all those platforms. But in conjunction with that, access to the OEM trainings as well. So we'll be curating that here over the next couple weeks and launching a new Encompass University on our solutions page. It is literally, I won't give you the exact timing,
Right.
but it's
It's coming
already
soon.
it's already under the black curtain. We're about to rip it off. So
Okay. Well, I've seen the tab on there, and I thought, well, we're at least going to address it a little bit.
my
So,
marketing VP, she's like, "Do not show anything else. Keep your
right.
wings." So,
All right. Well, I know it's a short one this week. Like I said, it wasn't as deep of a technical training, but it was a very important topic of conversation. I haven't seen any other questions pop back in. And Scott, anything else that we need to share? Anything else we want to discuss while we're on the show today?
mm, just another plug, encompass.com. If you don't like blue and teal, there's also a partstown.com.
Mhm.
So, check us out. It's easy to sign up. But more importantly, even if you don't buy from us, use the tools we're building because they're meant for you. So,
Perfect segue. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're grateful to have you on the show. Thank everyone for joining us this week. Hopefully, by next week, I might start being able to do a little bit of broadcasting from the remote studio. So, I was over there doing some tinkering today. I'll be in there tomorrow getting some stuff done. And it's going to be a few weeks before it's fully live, but it is getting so much closer. So, looking forward to sharing that new experience with everybody. And so we will see you all again next week on Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC show.